Psych. Good practice.
Welcome to Franklin Tomorrow's Candidate Forum for the Franklin City election set for October 25th. My name is Mindy Tate, and I'm Executive Director of Franklin Tomorrow, which since 2001 has served Franklin and those who live, work, and play here as a nonprofit community visioning organization. The 9 candidates seeking the 4 at-large aldermanic seats and the 2 men vying to be the town's mayor were all invited to attend. Mr. Bob Poe, who is a candidate for alderman, is unable to attend due to illness. Seeking the office of Franklin Alderman at Large are the 9 candidates. The top 4 vote getters in this election on October 25th will be elected to 4-year terms. The candidates to my right, beginning at my right, are Parker Altman of Nolan Lane, Clyde Barnhill of Spring Lake Drive, Pearl Bransford of Natchez Street. To my left, Joey.
I'm Brandy.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Brandy Blanton. Of Vienna Court.
You got it.
That's on my list. I just skipped over it. Sorry. To my left, Joey Zarneski of Wolford Circle, Scott Harrison of Sims Lane, Ann Peterson of Chesterfield Place, and Jay Wade of Jefferson Drive. And Mr. Poe is a resident of West Main Street. Also on the ballot in October is a charter change initiative to separate the races for the 4 at-large aldermanic seats into 4 individual contests rather than the election of the top 4 vote getters from an overall field. Early voting in these races begins October 5th and continues through October 20th at the Williamson County Election Commission office at 1320 West Main Street. It will be open on Saturdays, October 18th and October 15th, as well as Monday through Friday during those days. Additional questions were posed to the candidates by Franklin Tomorrow and are posted on our website, www.franklintomorrow.org. And I just want to say tonight that Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, parlayed a long military career and valiant service in World War II into his bid for presidency, never having held another political office. He was a plain speaker and once said, "There are a number of things wrong with Washington. One of them is that everyone is too far from home." That's not the case when it comes to the races we're considering tonight and in the upcoming election. The rubber meets the road as alderman and mayor, which is the closest level of government to the citizens of Franklin. Now we'll start with a introduction of the candidates, a brief introduction of each candidate. Parker Altman is an assistant principal at Centennial High School. Prior to working as an educator and administrator, he worked in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington. He and his family moved to Franklin in 2004. Clyde Barnhill has lived in Franklin all his life with the exception of the 2 years he served in the U.S. Army. He was employed as a supervisor at CPS for 39 years and has been the executive director of J.L. Clay Senior Citizens Center since September 2005. He served as alderman in Franklin from 1988 to 2003 and then was reelected in 2007. Brandy Blanton is owner, publisher of Southern Exposure magazine. She has been a resident of Franklin since 1976 and is a 1985 graduate of Franklin High School. She is a graduate of Leadership Franklin and has served on boards for Mercy Children's Clinic, the Williamson County Fair, and numerous other organizations. Pearl Bransford has lived in Franklin for over 22 years. She is currently the VP of Training and Development at Claiborne & Hughes, capping an over 30-year career in nursing. Prior to being elected alderman at large in 2007, Ms. Bransford served 11 years on the Franklin Special School District Board of Education. Joey Zarneski was born in Cookeville and raised around the world, as his father was a career Army soldier. A Tennessee Tech graduate, he lives in Franklin's Cool Springs area. He and his wife have one son, Ryan, and she's a Williamson County elementary school teacher. Scott Harrison is a 19-year resident of Franklin, employed by the Accident Insurance Company in the area of new business development. He's been a member of the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission since 2003. Ann Peterson, a math instructor at Columbia State Community College from 1982 through June 2011. She has lived in Franklin since 1968. She has served more than 20 years on the Franklin Planning Commission, and she is completing her first 4-year term on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And Jay Wade is a former private sector environmental consultant and after 26 years, a retiree from the Federal Aviation Administration. He moved to the Monticello subdivision in 1996, which was annexed in the city of Franklin in 2007. We have reviewed the rules prior to the beginning of this event. There will be no opening statements tonight, and the candidates will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. Our timekeeper will give a 1-minute warning and a 30-second warning, and then I'll ring the bell if they keep talking. But let's begin, and we'll begin with Mr. Altman. The first question goes to Mr. Altman. Mr. Altman, what area or program should the city spend less money on? And conversely, what area or program should the city spend more money or resources on?
Well, I think when you look at the city finances, we want to make sure that we're spending the appropriate amount of money on all the programs that need it. That being said, tight budgetary times, we need to look and see how we can scale back in every area without cutting services, without cutting staff. The city's done a good job at that. So the area that needs to spend the least amount of money on, I couldn't tell you right now. I think the city's done a good job in terms of budgeting and cutting where they need to and holding firm where they need to.
Great, thank you. Mr. Barnhill.
Well, I think the question itself is leading into the fact that we need to be fiscally conservative, and we need to make common sense decisions when we make decisions here on the board. What we would cut and what we wouldn't cut, as an incumbent, I would say that we're rolling along pretty well based upon the fact that I serve on the board now. If I was to pick one that we have to continue to maintain, that would be infrastructure and keeping up with the growth issues that we have. We are a very attractive place to live in Franklin. We constantly are attracting new businesses and new people coming to Franklin. So everything that the city does has an importance, and I don't know that there's one particular area to cut. I think that what we have to do is be as prudent as possible with the taxpayers' money and make sure that we cover all of the things, because everything that we do for the city is important to someone.
Thank you. Ms. Blanton.
I kind of think that question's subjective because it's a matter of opinion until you know what is out there. From my experience of even watching, it seems like aldermen are put things in front of them to decide on. I think until you get in, you're not going to understand. I mean, there's 5 basic areas that the city deals with. I mean, public safety, of course, is paramount, water, sewer, roads, and I don't know that anyone's more important than the other.
Ms. Bransford?
As an incumbent, I agree. I think we have towed the line pretty good. If I had my wishes and there were a pot of gold out there that we could spend, we have a CIP list that addresses a lot of the concerns that we have planned for the next several years. I would love to be able to say that we could spend enough money or have enough money to spend to meet all those CIP needs, because those CIP needs are the very thing that we all and you all are concerned about right now, a lot of roads improvement. However, that's not reality and that's not realistic. So as an elected official, I have to look at making prudent, realistic decisions. So I think we're doing a great job, and I want 4 more years to continue to do that great job with our fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Mr. Zarneski?
I have to agree with a lot of what's been said. Our city has already done a really good job at being good stewards of the money, but we can also look at and make sure that the money that we're spending is being spent in the areas of responsibility that is the government's responsibility. So if we had to cut somewhere, we would look at the major things that the city government has been given by the state and responsibility that we are supposed to fulfill. And so that's where we would start with our money. So if we had areas that we needed to cut, we would cut those areas that are not the responsibility of the government. Though, like I said, I believe that we have been good stewards of the funds that we've been given, and I think that we can move forward with that and continue to do that. And one of the ways we can do that is to look at other different ways of revenue streams. So if there's an area that is not the full responsibility of the city that it's funding right now, and we can look at public-private partnerships or something like that to bring in revenue, then we could reduce the city money that's going into that and have the private partnership pick up some of it.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison?
Excuse me. I think it's not so much as a effort of spending less money or spending more money. I think it's using what we have to use more scrutiny, possibly in the area of new acquisitions, reduce debt. As far as what we need to look at and focus on is we need to pay more attention on our infrastructure to make sure that the water is there, the sewer is there, the streets are there, the city services are there to take care of the citizens of the city of Franklin.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
We had an experience of having to cut 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, our budget was cut by 10%. To give an example, we kept the police cars a year longer. In other words, we postponed and used a little bit, made further use of things like vehicles or even major expenses like fire engines. And so those things we were able to do without cutting services. We probably also cut out some things like maybe some trips that used to occur, which were very helpful, but non-essential. So I think we cut non-essentials. We did not cut any employees, which I think was very important, not only to them, but to us to continue to have, provide the services that we have. Now, on the more money, my favorite would be to increase traffic capacity on the existing roads because traffic is a problem and we need to be able to move people in less time than what we have done before. So as I say, if I had my favorite on spending more money, that's what it would be on.
Mr. Wade?
Well, I'll answer that question directly because I've been watching city business for the last 15 years. And what I would cut is streetscape. Not that I don't like streetscape, I think it's probably a good idea. I do not like how it is funded. Now, replacing the water lines and the sewer lines in the street, that's on the city because that's antique infrastructure. But when you go back and put all the electric utilities underground, you put down brick paver sidewalks, you put up fancy street lights, all for free. All those property improvements are for free to the property owners. You go anywhere else in Franklin, and the property owner has to pay their share. Now, no one would say anything if it was just Main Street, where all the tourists go, but we're talking 3 blocks off of Main Street. So that's where I would cut and make those property owners pay their share, and I would use the funds towards traffic improvement for the roads that help everybody in Franklin and just not a few people downtown. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We hope to get through 5 to 6. Maybe we'll get through all the 8 candidates. We'll get a chance to be the first to answer a question. This question goes to Mr. Barnhill. You're running for Alderman at large. Please tell us the name of your ward alderman and whether you voted in the last 2 city elections, the first in 2007 for Alderman at large and the 2009 election for ward alderman. That date was chosen because all of you have lived and been registered to vote in the city since 2006.
Well, my ward alderman is Margaret Martin, and yes, I voted in the 2007 election, and I certainly voted in the 2009 election. I was, the one vote was important once, and I have not missed the opportunity to vote in every election.
Bev Berger is my ward alderman, and I don't think I voted in both of them. Unfortunately, I saw that wasn't the case, but as we go forward, obviously. And I will expound on that to say, my goal is to engage a new sect of generations, not that I'm the youngster, but I think being open and honest and relatable is important to me. So we need to engage the people that have never voted. So I deflect that. I'm not trying to, but that's where I stand with that.
Okay, Ms. Bransford.
I want to thank you for being honest. And
I can't
open.
help it,
Thank
girl.
you.
It's just the way it is.
Yes, Mike Skinner, are you in the building? Probably not. I'll wave at you at home because I'm sure you're watching, is my ward alderman. The other elections, yes, I make an effort to get out there and vote. I think I was up and I probably voted for myself in 2007. Took a few people with me, yeah.
All right, Mr. Zarneski.
Bev Berger is my alderman in my ward, and I did vote in the 2009 election, And I do not remember, since I was somewhat new to the city, if I did vote in the 2007, but I do not believe I did. But I did vote in the 2009.
2 votes for honesty.
Mr. Harrison.
My ward alderman is the second ward. It's Dana McClendon. I'm a big supporter of Dana's, have been for several years. I voted in 2007 and the 2009 both elections. Wasn't 2007. So.
Ann Peterson.
Margaret Martin is my alderman, and yes, I voted those last 2 times as well as many before then. We're big voters.
Mr. Wade.
Well, my first election for the city was 2007, after I'd been annexed, and I did vote in that election. I thought about running for mayor then, but I didn't have the 6 months in the city that was required by the charter. And I did vote in the last election. Dana McClendon, second ward, is my alderman, and I did vote for him.
Great.
Now, I would like to see everybody get out and vote. I'm afraid we're going to have a low turnout election again. So I would ask everybody to tell people to come out and vote, even if you don't vote for me. Come vote and participate in city government.
Great. Our third question is going to go to Ms. Blanton first. Does Franklin need a new city hall? And if so, where should it be located? And should it be traditional?
I got this one.
And should it be traditional in its design and construction?
Amen.
Would you repeat that?
Wait.
Yes.
It's fine.
I'm sorry, Parker. No, sorry. Parker. I had my list, I just didn't look at it.
My ward alderman is Ms. Martin, and unfortunately, like a couple others, I didn't vote in both of the last elections. Like 90% of Americans, city politics is not always first and foremost in most people's minds, but that was a mistake. I knew that. So, there we go.
Thank you. Let me repeat the question to Ms. Blanton. Does Franklin need a new city hall? And if so, where should it be located? And should it be traditional in its design and construction?
You know, I've said in almost all of my campaign paraphernalia, I don't have an agenda, but there are 2 things I'm passionate about, and this would be one of them. I do think, and it's interesting, I'm glad I got this first, policy was written, I think 10 years ago, I haven't seen it, that kind of mandates that City Hall remain on the square. So to move it, we'd have to rewrite policy, but of course that's what's done all the time. I think it's important that City Hall stay on the square. I think it's an important hub of government activity. I think it just needs to stay there. I think not only do we have a thriving downtown, but I also think that we have, you know, it brings people in, it makes them gather. And traditional as far as architecture, I know there's some plans that have already been done. I'm not quite sure about how I feel about the boutique hotel plan with retail. I haven't seen it all. I haven't seen the pros and cons, but I'm definitely adamant for it to remain on Square.
All right. Ms. Bransford.
Yes and yes. As you probably know, I'm the alderman with, least conversation. I know what I want to vote for, and I study it, and I make a decision. So yes to a new city hall, and yes to staying on the square. Is there any other information needed on that? Okay, that's how I think. Okay.
Great. Mr. Zarneski.
Understanding that there are issues with the current City Hall building, we have the mold issues and we have some space issues. The new technologies that we're using, the building wasn't necessarily built for that. I do believe that we do need to replace City Hall eventually, sooner rather than later. When on the board of mayor and aldermen, we would need to look at all the possibilities of where we need to locate City Hall, though I do believe that keeping it in the hub of the city government is the best thing to do. So I do kind of think that being in the hub of the city is the best place for it. But I do believe, not having been in all of the previous meetings, that once I get on to the board of mayor and aldermen and read all of the other documentation, we can make an informed decision and the best decision for our return on our investment.
Mr. Harrison.
Yes, I think that we do need a new city hall. I do think it should be on the square. I actually had the privilege of sitting on a charrette that was done several years ago where actual plans were put together. The plans included a hotel, residential, and retail. I think that the city can partner up with somebody within the private sector, and we can make a hotel successful here. It would be a great addition, as well as with retail, and provide parking adequately to support the residential and the retail. I think it would be a great idea.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
At this time, I do not support a new city hall because of the money involved. It is one of those worthwhile projects, you know, and there are more of them than we have money to spend right now, and so that would be the downside to me. We just don't have the money right now to do this. There are limitations here, obviously, and I see that as something that will come up, but it is not one of my top priorities at the moment because of the money involved. Downtown, you know, on the square, great, traditional, yes, but as I say, it's just not something that I see that is at the top of the list now, even though it would be wonderful.
Mr. Wade?
I appreciate the question. In my mind, the only reason we're having this discussion and question down here is because last May 24th, at the public hearing on the PUD to rezone the property, I'm the only one that got up and spoke against the city's fast-track solution to pigeonhole City Hall into a boutique hotel. I didn't think it was a good idea. It would ensure that in the future years we'd run out of room and we'd have scattered city offices. Now, we do need a new city hall. There are issues with the roof and the air conditioner, but it's not an urgent issue. And I told the board then that there are other options that we should consider. City Hall is not in a historic building. City Hall does not generate any tourist revenue, but it does sit on prime real estate. And I've talked with city employees. There's no operational reason that City Hall needs to be downtown on the square. Some people just like it. Other people who don't live downtown think it would be better to be further out where they have more access, more parking, when they can build a new building and have room for future expansion. And I also told the board that if they decided to leave City Hall downtown, that it needed to be its own city-owned, standalone building and not part of some public-private partnership with a developer, and not be part of any commercial development here on the square. Thank you.
Look, I'm remembering to turn to my right and say, Mr. Altman.
Thank you. Well, what makes downtown Franklin special, what makes Franklin as a city special, is the historic nature of downtown. And I think part of that is having the government offices on the square. So yes, City Hall, I think, should stay on the square. Should we get a new City Hall, rebuild City Hall? Yes, when it's economically feasible to do so. A lot of times, it's maybe not what you'd want to do in a time of economic downturn, but sometimes you can get good interest rates on loans. Construction costs sometimes can be a little bit cheaper. So it would definitely be something to look into.
Great, thank you. Mr. Barnhill.
The hotel is not, or the hotel and the City Hall are not on the CIP list with a real high priority. We certainly look at that, but we certainly it's our obligation to look at all things, because you never know when you're going to be able to leverage a dollar. Somebody may come in, they may want to put a project together. At some point in time, this building was never built for a City Hall. It's going to have to be replaced. And when that replacement comes, we've become accustomed to the courthouse, to City Hall being on the square. I think that this is the ideal, well, it may not be the ideal location, but this is it. This is the location that I would support for a City Hall. We've had numerous, we've had public-private partnership offers come in. None of those have worked out to our satisfaction. We would continue to look at the financing on this, But I will tell you that as tight as the money is, and the way we've cut the budget, and the fact that the sales tax revenues are just now picking up for the past year, there's no plans that I know of unless there's a tremendous greater interest in a public-private partnership of some sort to rebuild the city hall, or build a city hall down here. What we've got with the police department moving out and freeing up that space, you do have space in city hall as it is now, even though the roof may leak and the air conditioning units may not work all the time. Space right now is not a complete issue, not a total issue, and I see a city hall being here at some point in time, but I don't see that happening in the next few years.
Thank you. Next question will go to Ms. Bransford first. As we mentioned earlier, also on the ballot on October 25th is a proposed change to the charter, which would separate the 4 races for at-large aldermen into individual races, with the top vote getter in each race elected rather than the current method where the top 4 vote getters in one race are elected. Do you support the revision in the method of electing at-large aldermen?
When this came before us as a proposal, I voted in support of moving this to the charter, to the council, so that we could put it out there for the citizens to vote. There's opportunities. I believe that citizens should be given the opportunity to choose whom they want and how they want to make that vote. Right now, currently, when you go to the poll on the 25th of October, you have an opportunity to cast 4 votes for 4 individuals, or you have the opportunity to do anything in between. That is the current option. There historically has been times when individuals would go to the poll and choose 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 individuals, and they have the right to do that. So we're putting this before citizens. You have that opportunity to decide if you want to have categories where Pearl Bransford, Alderman at Large, is in one category, and individuals will choose to run against Pearl Bransford, not Clyde Barnhill, or individuals will choose to run against Clyde Barnhill. So that is the opportunity that will be presented to you when you go to the poll this year. I support people being able to make their own decision.
Thank you. Mr. Zarneski?
I think Pearl described pretty well the 2 ways this would either do the current way, where it's the top 4 vote getters, or where you would pick an individual in A, B, C, or D position. I personally will be voting no in that particular referendum because I do not like that change. I feel there's pros and cons on both sides, but I personally think that it gives an incumbent a little bit of an edge. And I can see both sides, that maybe it doesn't, but my feelings, my thoughts, is it gives the incumbents an edge because in this case, Mayor Moore stepped up and we have a vacant seat. In that case, you could have had 6 people running for the vacant seat, and then all 3 incumbents would have ran with nobody going against them. And I feel like that gives a little bit more opportunity with the top 4 vote getters, the way we have it now, to make a change more often than at the public. And we really, sometimes I feel like we need to really change more often than we change our elected leaders. So I'm against the measure.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison?
I've looked at this resolution and studied it, and I think the resolution does carry some good merits. I think that ultimately the citizens will decide, and I'm glad it is coming before us as a resolution that can be voted on the 25th, and I think we'll let the people decide.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
I believe that the winners of the at-large alderman office should be the candidates that get the highest votes, which would mean the largest support from the entire city. I will be voting against this. I voted against it whenever it came before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And the other side to that is incumbents can have a target on their back, too. So it's not necessarily good for the incumbents to have this set up. But again, I just feel, and I like this part of the at-large vote, because you do get the people who have the largest amount of support over the entire city.
Great. Mr. Wade?
Well, as I understand it, the original proposal was to have the 4 slots with each slot assigned to one of the wards, and that the at-large alderman would have to come one from each ward. That's not how it ended up. And having been present in the audience at one of the work sessions, I heard one of the aldermen explain he'd never had the opportunity to run unopposed. So I would urge voters to vote no, because all this, as written, will do is make it much harder to unseat an incumbent alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Mr. Altman?
Well, like folks up here have said, pros and cons on both sides of the issue. I believe at this point in time, I'm leaning to voting no on it for many of the same reasons, in terms of incumbents do have an advantage, and obviously I'm not an incumbent, so it'd be to my benefit this time around. But I think long-term, it'll be benefit of the city of Franklin and the citizens here to have the ability to get in, like Ms. Peterson said, the top 4 vote getters for who the citizens of Franklin want.
Thank you. Mr. Barnhill?
Well, there were several issues when this came up, and we looked at, or I looked at several different things. And number one, whether we even needed 4 at-large aldermen, whether we needed 6 wards, and whether we needed 3 ward aldermen and a large alderman running at the same time. So you would have 4 people running, but you would have 3 in ward, and you would have 1 at large then. As far as some of the scenarios, you could have 6 votes right now from the same ward, the way this is set up. And I don't view that as being particularly fair. The first ward basically has 1 vote, and the second ward basically has 1 vote. And if you throw the mayor's vote in with the 7, then you've got the other 7 of the alderman and the mayor in the 3rd and 4th wards. And we were looking at several different scenarios. The thing that disappointed me the most may have been the fact that we really didn't do anything other than just give the citizens the opportunity to vote their opinion. And we had the vote at the board, and there was votes at the board that denied even that opportunity for that to be on the ballot. And it had to go to the state legislature. The state legislature had to approve it. It had to come back for a charter change. So all this is just an opportunity for you to go to the polls and see if you think there's a better way. I will say this, you don't do a circuit judge the way we do at large aldermen. You have 4 circuit judges. There's 4 different positions in the circuit court. As an example, and I'm sure there's other examples. I'm not hung up either way, one way or the other. We were looking at it. We thought there was possibly an opportunity here for some improvement. I will say this, I don't think that benefits an incumbent alderman.
So you got there,
I will start by saying I'm thankful today that it is still the way it is. I like the idea of the top 4. Running for alderman at large was very attractive to me because my friend base is all over the city. It's not necessarily just in my ward. I think the unfortunate thing is the average citizen who goes to the polls is not going to understand what they're deciding on. So I think that we'll probably end up with what we already have, which is good with me.
Thank you. This question goes first to Mr. Zarneski, so we've made it around the curve here. What would be your most important issue if elected to the post of alderman?
Well, for me, I work for the state of Tennessee, and we're currently going through a top-to-bottom review of state government and trying to be more efficient, get rid of archaic processes and things like that. And I think that would be very beneficial at the city level as well. I've been part of the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence, which is a Malcolm Baldrige, state-level Malcolm Baldrige. And I've done that at several different organizations and see a huge benefit to be able to sit down and look at your processes, look at what you do well, what you don't do well, and what you shouldn't be doing that other people can do well, better than you. That's their expertise. And so I think that one of the things I'd like to push is to go forward with some type of process where we can look at our government and see how we can do it better, where our expertise lies, and try to get rid of anything that's archaic and any processes that are redundant and things like that. And so that's really the biggest thing that I think I would push. And on top of that, Franklin sometimes seems to be a city, a lot of people feel like that it's unfriendly to do business with the city. And I think this process actually helps with that. It sees where we are bottlenecking, getting customers, they're getting frustrated when we actually sit and look at that, and we can improve those processes and make the city more friendly so that businesses enjoy coming down here and trying to get things changed versus seeming like they're getting stonewalled. So, thank you.
Mr. Harrison.
The time that I've lived here, I think Franklin's had a pretty good run. It's been very successful. We've created a lot of opportunity in the city. We've created a lot of growth and improved our schools and our businesses. And I think in the future, what we need to look at is to focus on the infrastructure, focus on our water supply to make sure it's adequate. And we need to keep focusing on the things that have gotten us here. And in doing so, that means being friendly to the businesses that are here and to the businesses that are coming in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
My issue is money. I've been the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee for the last 2 years and have learned a great deal about how the money is being spent. There are two parts to this. One is the debt that in the past 10 years has gone from $22 million to $122 million. And there were projects that were committed to that increased this, but we are at the place now where we really need to look carefully. We are very fortunate here in Franklin. We have AAA rating. There are only 3 cities in the state of Tennessee that have the AAA rating, Brentwood and Germantown. So we have money. We have been more fortunate than most, any city, in the sense that even though we've had to cut, we have still been able to provide services. But the debt now is $5 million a year just to pay on principal and interest. And that's a pretty big part of a budget that's less than $55 million. And so I'm going to be a guardian on that still.
Thank you. Mr. Wade?
I would agree the number one issue is city debt. In 2001, the average per capita debt in the city of Franklin was $825. By 2010, that had gone up to $3,105, and it's still higher today. And city debt, the debt service, is usually what causes municipalities to have to raise taxes. So if we don't want to raise taxes, we got to keep a handle on the debt. And if you keep a handle on the debt, that means you don't spend a lot of money that you don't need to spend. And things like City Hall and some of these roads and sewer projects that we have to do have to have a better handle on, and maybe some of them will have to wait longer than people would like. But I think overall, for all of the city and all of the citizens, the first priority is to keep a handle on the debt, just like you would with your own finances, so that we don't get into trouble, and so that we can jump on things that come along that are opportunities, like the 84 lumber that came up. And we are able to weather economic crises or weather an emergency, but you have to be in good financial shape to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Mr. Altman?
Well, biggest thing that I see is balance. I've said it before, and what I mean by that is balancing our checkbook as a city with opportunities that come up, like potentially a new city hall, balancing the growth of the city with the preservation and conservation of what makes Franklin special and unique, which is the historical downtown area as well as the surrounding green space. Just keeping things in balance so that no one ward, like was mentioned earlier, is running the show. We are a city with unique and distinct regions, Cool Springs, downtown, the surrounding neighborhoods, balancing each one of those areas' needs as well as wants and wishes, and bringing us all together as a city. And that's what being an at-large alderman will allow me to do.
Thank you, Mr. Altman. Mr. Barnhill?
I think you could probably sum it up in a couple of words, and that's fiscal responsibility, being responsible for the taxpayers' money, making sure that that money is spent as wisely and as prudently as possible. We have all the services that we have to provide, but we as aldermen have to make the decisions when it does not have, we don't, I guess, we're unlike the federal government. We don't print our own money, so we don't have an infinite supply. So we have to make the choices and decisions, and those decisions sometimes are not the most popular decision maybe for one person or one group of people, but we make the best decisions that we can, be as fiscally responsible as possible, and be as prudent with taxpayers' money as you can. And again, as an example, in 2007, when I came back on the board, the proposed budget was $60 billion. We were looking at nowhere near that kind of revenue coming in. We asked for the cuts. We made those cuts. We made the sacrifices that we had to make in programs, and we cut the budget back to about somewhere in the $52–53 million range, and that's pretty much where it's stayed. Now, there have been fees, and I probably shouldn't bring these up as the incumbent because the fees themselves have offset some of the property tax increases. So you have not had a property tax increase I hadn't had a property tax increase since 1988 or 89 or 90, somewhere along in there. So, and I was there when we did that and suffered through that. So when I hadn't suffered through one since. But I think to watch your taxpayers' money, use some common sense approaches to decisions that you make, or what you need to do as far as guiding the city in the direction it needs to go.
Thank you. Ms. Blanton?
Okay, question, when it was worded, is it what my important issue is? I got the moniker of my, so it changes how I answer this.
What would be your most important issue if elected to the post
Okay,
of office?
that's what I want to make sure. We've answered a lot of questionnaires. We've done a lot of handshaking and people asking certain things. And you at home can't see the turnout in this room, and it's great, but it's not anywhere where it should be. So much like I've answered in many of the other forums or questionnaires, we've got to engage our citizens. We've got to be able to listen to them, because what might be your issue may not be their issue, and we're working on small pockets of issues. And I think engaging the citizens, and it's a lifelong battle, I know. But I think, like I said in another answer the other day, CIPs and it is so hard for John Smith to come in here and jump into what's being done, because they've got to have a dialogue and a handbook for the acronyms and what they missed before. And I'm not saying we need to waste a lot of time always trying to educate everybody, but ignorance is something that makes people kind of stand back and go, I don't understand that, so I can't play. And that's important to me. And I am the next generation, and my kids come after me. And, you know, it's very important that we try to reach out and be inclusive and not exclusive. So that's my issue.
Thank you. Ms. Bransford?
My most important issue, of course, being fiscal responsible is always there, but underneath that lies things like, for me, our older neighborhood, the infrastructure in our older neighborhoods, economic development and tourism. How can we continue to bring people into our city to spend money and leave, so that we can So we can use their, they can eat in our restaurants, they can shop at our shops, they can stay in our hotels, they can play on our soccer fields. So we need to continue, for me, to engage in that, working with our CVB, working with our parks and recs, working with partnership with businesses. So how can we bring real dollars to keep our taxes low into our community from other folks that we don't have to educate?
This question goes to Mr. Peterson. What is the city's most pressing need in the area of transportation, and what is a realistic solution in today's economy?
By transportation, you mean mass transportation or infrastructure?
I mean infrastructure.
Infrastructure?
Or mass transit.
What I think
Plays a role.
the most pressing need we have right now is the most pressing need we've had for several years. It's the completion of the Mac Hatcher extension on the northwest corner from Hillsborough Road to Highway 96 West. I think by completing that stretch of the bypass, we will alleviate a lot of the downtown traffic that comes through here, because currently the only way to enter the city from the west is to come 96 down to downtown and come up Hillsborough Road to catch down Mac Hatcher to get around to other parts of the city. So I would think that would be the most important.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
I definitely think that the Mac Hatcher is, the extension is a great step forward in improving the traffic flow. However, I can tell you from having to be in the Hillsborough Road area, they have found a lot of ways to go from 96 West on to Hillsborough Road instead of just coming directly downtown. They found a lot of ways to do that. And so that brings me to my next comment about transportation. Hillsborough Road is the project that is our top project in the sense that the city of Franklin will pay most of it. Mac Hatcher, of course, will be paid by state and national funding. So that is very important to me. And in fact, any place that we can put some extra lanes in, even if it's on Hillsborough and it has turn lanes, that will help. The other part is that there have been, let's see, I think in the last week, there were bids open, but nothing's determined through the state to 4-lane Mac Hatcher from Franklin Road over to 96 East. That will help a great deal. But please understand that probably the biggest traffic bottleneck is from 96 East around to I guess all the way to Columbia Avenue, but certainly to Lewisburg. That's the place where the backup really occurs there. There are plenty of other road projects too. I could name some going east, McEwen, things like that. But there's so many that need to be improved to move traffic.
Thank you. Mr. Wade?
Well, I wish I had more than 2 minutes, because there's a lot of traffic issues that I could speak to. I've been working on the TDOT planning for the Mac Hatcher Northwest Extension for almost a decade, and they still haven't turned the first shovel of dirt. And you ask, why does it take so long? Well, there have been issues. Part of the issues has been the city of Franklin has been dragging their feet in getting stuff to the state. The state's a glacial agency. They take forever, but you got to get the stuff to them. And the city of Franklin hasn't done the best job of getting things ready to go. So I think we need to look at that, and then you have priorities. What roads are you going to put your money on? Well, like Ann just said, Hillsborough Road needs to be paid for by the city. But the city's going great guns on the South Carruthers Parkway extension because there's a lot of new development over there. But that's not where the city wants to put their effort. So we need to have a redirection and a reprioritization of where we're going to spend city money on roads to help the current residents and not some future resident and some new development. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Altman?
Well, kind of echo what Ms. Peterson said. I think the most prudent solution right now, while I would like to have the Mac Hatcher extension, I live out west of town. I enjoy driving through downtown Franklin every day to work to the east of town. I would spend money widening and improving the roads that we have. to help the traffic flow a little bit better. You know, turning lane on Hillsborough Road would be nice. The southeast quarter of Mac Hatcher, that would be nice to have a little bit wider. So I'll look at the existing roads and increase the traffic flow on those roads.
Thank you. Mr. Barnhill.
We've got several projects within the Capital Improvements Projects Committee, CIP. And, thank you. So, you know, to pick out one, you know, we've got, if you want to pick out South Carruthers, if you want to pick out McEwen all phases, if you want to pick out Hillsborough Road, if you want to pick out Mac Hatcher, if you want to pick out the widening of the Mac Hatcher project that the state's getting ready to undergo. But you've also got water and sewer issues, you've got water plant issues. We just got through spending about $3 billion to stop the lake from leaking 2 million gallons a day for about 2 years. So you've got a lot of projects that take a lot of money, and that's the reason it's as difficult as it is for us to sit up there and prioritize $50 or $60 billion a year in capital improvements projects items. And you've got Hillsborough Road, which is $20 million within it, or close to $20 million within itself. So I wouldn't pick any one particular project, but I think that there are a number of road projects that would improve traffic in and around Franklin. I'll go one even that hasn't been mentioned, that may be mentioned. We're looking at 3rd Avenue extension over to 5th Avenue. We're looking at some roads within the city of Franklin that not only would probably help some traffic issues, but would enhance some areas along the Harpeth River. So there are a number of things that are going on that we need to be recognizant of and aware of and understand what's involved when we have a capital improvements projects committee meeting together and sit down and try to divvy out $50 or $60 billion a year in allocated debt and decide where that goes and where that goes over a 5 or 6 year program, because the programs are not, we don't do it every month. I mean, those programs are laid out for 5 years, 6 years, 7. Whatever it is, and you don't allocate every one of them for all of that particular, for one particular year.
Thank you. Ms. Blanton?
I'm familiar with all the road projects, and even the extension of 3rd, that was a Bicentennial Park project that was supposed to come. And priority-wise, my husband and I were talking the other night, and I'll earmark it back, because like he said, when Saturn came, all of this growth spilled into Williamson County, Murray County, and we weren't quite ready for it. The mentality of build it and they will come has long passed us by, unfortunately, when it comes to infrastructure. So we've got to do our best, I think, to go ahead and catch up with the mess we've already made in these 5 projects. Of course, Mac Hatcher taking up 2 of those. For me, I have to plan. I'm an early girl anyway, but you have to plan how long you're going to have to take to get your desired destination. And roads aren't going to be made overnight. Nickel Mill, I think, is almost finished, which that's interesting that's happened, but I can think of other things that should have been done prior to that, but it wasn't my decision at the time. So I think we just need to keep chucking away at it and make some improvements.
Ms. Bransford?
I think most of the main roads has been mentioned, Hillsborough Road, Columbia Avenue. I just want to throw in a little different slant here, looking at, our traffic signalization to move traffic better, faster, quicker through certain peak hours, making sure we're getting the best out of those systems for traffic signalization in order to move traffic. Another plug I want to put in is for our transit system. For those of you who are raving around town and going back and forth to Walmart or Kroger or doctor, hospital, we do have a transit system here for Franklin Transit. On demand, you can get that. So we, which we're not accustomed to, getting on a city bus and riding to an appointment and taking some of the cars off the street, particularly for individuals who are working and living within that perimeter. The transit system serves a lot of folks in our community. Some of you in this room may not know that but there are folks in our city that utilize and use the transit. They probably don't have a car, but we need to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Zarneski?
Like Clyde said and several other people have said, we have a lot of projects on the capital improvement project list and only a limited supply of money. If we're talking about infrastructure, the actual roads that need to be addressed, you know, when we do that capital improvement project list, we need to look at different reasons why we put them on there. McEwen, the phase 4 of McEwen really needs to be addressed because there's school issues. You have kids on the school bus going through there. You have that same issue with the McHatcher extension in Hillsborough because you've got all that traffic backed up there for the high school. South Carruthers Parkway, which was mentioned, you know, one of the biggest things there that we need to also look at is we want to do all these other projects, whether they're roads or city hall or anything else. And when you bring in a road that is going to be fairly inexpensive, but will bring in development, that development brings in impact fees, that development brings in property taxes, and that money will offset the cost of that particular road, and then that money will also give you more money in the coffers to do other things. So, you know, I think South Carruthers Parkway is definitely a good example of that. A $2.5–3 million road to bring in a fairly large community would actually help even the existing residents in the city of Franklin because that money is spread across other projects. So looking at how we prioritize the capital improvement project on the roads really is what's important to know what we get, the biggest impact we get for the money that we spend, whether it's, again, you know, Carruthers, South Carruthers helping with income, or, you know, like McEwen, that's going to help straighten out roads. So if we have to get ambulances to the school, firefighters to the school, and things like that, or just, again, the school buses themselves. So those are some of the roads that I would say would be important to take care of. So thank you.
Great. This question will go to Ms. Peterson first. Do you think moving the city elections to a cycle that fits with other local and/or state elections would be a positive move for the city?
That's an interesting question. We do have notoriously low percentage of people who vote in the present setup. That is something to think about, and I really do not have an opinion on that, believe it or not. I have an opinion on almost everything, but it perhaps would help the turnout.
Mr. Wade?
I absolutely think we ought to change the schedule of the election to coincide with the even years to the major elections for state and federal. Now, I've had this debate with other aldermen, and their reason for not wanting it is they didn't want people asking them about other issues, state and federal issues. They just wanted to be asked about the local issues, and they wanted people who only knew about local issues coming out to vote. Didn't want uninformed people coming out to vote. Well, my opinion is the more people you get out to vote, they're going to get informed. That will be in the paper. You'll have more people talking about it. And I certainly would support moving the election to one of the major elections so we get some turnout. That may mean the ballot's longer, but I think the trade-off there is good for the city of Franklin. We'll have more people involved.
Thank you. Mr. Altman?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Barnhill?
Well, that item certainly hasn't come up on the capital improvements project. I don't know that
I've
that's,
trained him on like 1 30-minute period.
I don't know that that's been discussed that much. I really don't have a particular issue one way or the other. Unlike Alderman Peterson, who said that she has an opinion on almost everything. I do have an opinion on everything. I just don't express it anymore.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Blanton?
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Ms. Bransford?
No opinion.
Mr. Zarneski?
I have to say that going out and knocking on doors, the biggest thing that people ask is, the election is the first Tuesday in November, correct? And I said, no, it's October 25th. Really? My answer to that is yes, we need to move it.
Mr. Harrison?
That's an interesting question to me because today in the paper I read where I think Tennessee ranked 48th or 49th in the nation as far as voter turnout in general elections. It's an interesting question. I'm not so sure that we'd get a greater turnout. So, that's not a 50 state, sorry.
Yeah. This question will go to Mr. Wade first. Since the economic downturn, many residential developers have recognized the need to revise their plans to include smaller lots, front-loading garages, and smaller floor plans. Do you support revisions that would result in greater density if it results in a more marketable or affordable product for the community?
Well, that's the question about, do you have cheaper houses or do you want big McMansions? What do you want to have? I think there should be a spectrum of what people have. And that also broaches into the affordable housing issue of, do you have to have a spectrum within one development with different price ranges of houses that people could afford? And the city, in the planning department, they've got a lot of rules, and they're very specific on what people can and can't do. And it depends on what you want to have as a city of Franklin. Do you want it to be a cookie cutter where every subdivision looks very similar? Or do you want to have differences in the subdivisions? And my opinion was that you would allow that up to a point, that people can do that. They can make things denser if they want to, but you have to realize that you have more traffic when you have more houses on a lot. And you would have cheaper houses there too. Now, they do have requirements for whether you have brick or vinyl and what kind of street lights you put on the street and all the amenities. And I think those are good things, but lowering the lot size to allow more people, as long as it fits within all the infrastructure of there's room for them, that I think they should be allowed.
Mr. Altman.
I think a variety of housing options is great. As a public school educator, if we didn't have the affordable housing, I would not have been able to move to Franklin. So I appreciate the fact that we do have some affordable housing, some workforce housing, as well as the more historic homes, the McMansions, as you call them. I do think we need to have standards in terms of how we develop, but I also like the idea of having a variety of housing options for the people who work in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Barnhill?
I don't disagree with the variety of housing options within the city, because I think we already have a lot of that now. I would say that I don't necessarily think that a smaller lot size equates to a less expensive home. I think what we've seen is $130, $140, $150, $160, up to $250 a square foot on a house, and it's not dependent upon the lot size. It's dependent upon how it's built and the quality of what it's built and where it's built. So, sure, you can't have all $500,000 houses sitting in the city of Franklin. We don't have that now. We probably do not have enough workforce housing or affordable housing, and that's really, that's a term that I'm not sure that anybody's ever truly explained that, because workforce housing or affordable housing, I think, is $200,000 and under, and if the household income is 50, and if that's affordable at $200,000 and 50, and then workforce housing is $200 and above and $50,000 to $70,000 of family income. So when you start categorizing that and you start pigeonholing all of that, you sometimes get issues that you don't necessarily expect. Now, as far as front-loading garages and some of the other things, that some of the issues that we've had in the past, that's a personal preference. If that's what you like and that's what you want, some people like it, some people don't. But we do need more of a variety of housing in Franklin to accommodate those who want to live in Franklin, who do not want necessarily travel back and forth between their jobs and live in Thompson Station or Spring Hill or someplace like that.
Ms. Blanton?
I have been fortunate enough to live, being raised in a neighborhood that is, it was $42,000 in 1976 when my mom bought it. It was 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, great house, could walk to school most times. Now I live on the other side of town, the east side of town, and I have 5 children, so we have a house that accommodates 5 children when they were all lived at home. I have no yard. I will never have a yard if I stay there, but you can't raise your children in the yard. There are different families, there's different setups of families. I mean, to some, their family is their husband, themselves, and their pet. To others, it's 2.5 children. Diversity in housing is, as far density, I guess, is the question. We're starting to offer more of that. From what I'm seeing, that's kind of become one of the nouveau ways to bring in new housing, because it does build community. You take a West Haven or a McKay's Mill, or even Fieldstone Farms in its infancy was planned for that. You build a sense of community when you have different levels of pricing. I have a son and daughter-in-law that live in McKay's Mill, but they want to move into a house, and there's not a lot of options. And that's frustrating to me as a mom, because I want my children to grow up in Franklin, thankful that they want to, instead of move to Montana. But I do think, affordable housing has changed now. It's not affordable anymore. I think, what is it it's called now?
Workforce.
Yes. And workforce housing kind of bothers me too. Workforce is typically labeled for your firemen, your police, your teachers. Well, my children don't fall into any of those career goals, so I want them to be able to choose to call Franklin home if they want to. I also think density in housing gives you an opportunity to move in at maybe a smaller level, build equity, and then maybe move on to something that's more of a, ranch-style house that, is something that they strive to. It is personal opinion, but I think option is the key, and I think price point is the key. And everything that goes before BOMA is done and looked at very carefully, so I think we need to continue to do that, but bringing in more options is good. I got
France for Kathleen.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to sit on the Housing Commission. So for the last few years, I have seen a lot of things here in Franklin. I have seen people that want to live here not be able to live here, buy here. They move to our neighboring communities. One example is they were able to get into a home for under $200,000, actually $187,000. There was a range, and in that same complex, they also had $350,000 homes in that same community. So greater density. What you put inside the home is where you see the increased costs. Marble versus lamina, those kinds of things. The outside can look very nice and very accommodating. I have seen Habitat build homes here in Franklin recently. They're not the little cracker box homes they used to build. They are cute little houses with the gables and the decorative flower boxes and etc. Just go along Carter Street. Any one of those homes would look nice in anybody's community here in Franklin. So it's the style, it's how we keep our exterior looking nice. So there are opportunities here in Franklin for us to create, particularly in our older neighborhoods. There are infill opportunities. We need to work together as citizens, and we need to be acceptance. Not in my backyard. We're going to have to think about that a little bit more. If you want your school teacher, if you want the person who works at Uncle Bud to be, part of your community, then we need to be able to create housing stock for them. So we will continue to work on this, and I will want the opportunity to work some more with the citizens on affordable housing and creating housing for people who want to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Zarneski.
I think it's very important that we allow changes in our rules to allow for, higher density. Higher density allows you to be able to put more people on a plot of land. Land's expensive. I have helped build over 15 Habitat homes here in Williamson County. Beasley Place, I've helped build half of those homes. I think it's very important that we don't try to pigeonhole and say this is the group of people that's going to live in this community. We should be able to have a diverse group of people. Our kids learn from that. We really grow as a community when we have lots of different people around us that we learn from. And so I think it is important that we look at the different standards that we have, allow for density. We don't want to go too much that causes issues, but again, making sure that we can get more on a piece of property because our property is very expensive here. And I think that the biggest thing on BOMA is what we can do to help organizations that come in to build those homes like Habitat to make sure that we can keep those homes affordable. A Habitat home is $100,000, about 1,100 square feet. So if we can do that in downtown Franklin for some people, I think that's very important. If other developers can come in and do it, that's great too. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison?
The way I understood the question was, is an issue of density. And I think that we do need to allow more density in our projects here. Just allowing more density does not always take away green space. You can have large density in certain plots and still have a lot of green space left. The higher density does help afford towards more assortment of homes and opportunities for individuals. However, as Franklin strives to become a sustainable city, density also allows you to be livable, workable, walkable, and helps cut down on emissions and travel times and trip times. And so there's more to it than just creating the homes, which I've always been an advocate of, affordable homing or workforce homing, but also help us strive towards being a sustainable city.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson?
I have stated that I support diverse housing here in Franklin, and we really have neighborhoods that are diverse. In addition to thinking about higher density, though, I think there was mentioned smaller lot sizes. We have a great number of homes that are on very small lots. The downside to that is that you lose the chance to have really almost any more than a swing set in your backyard. You know, the children don't play in their yards anymore the way they did when mine were growing up. You know, they could play knockout. In fact, I was just saying this weekend, this week, that we went over to the neighbor's house where they had a sandbox. You know, and it's important to let children have space, and so whenever and to be able to be outside for activity. And so that is a thing that I think we've lost whenever we've gone to very small lot sizes. We do have higher density, and I'm not just talking about apartments. I'm talking about some neighborhoods that have a density of 15 units per acre. We have some of those. And if you stop and think about that, that is pretty dense. They may have some green space, but again, we're going toward more usable green space. But believe me, this is a trade-off. This is a trade-off.
Thank you. We've made one round with questions, and this, Ray, you're going to go to a wide shot on this because this is a group participation question. The City of Franklin, several years ago, just a few years ago, instituted a blue bag recycling program. Raise your hand if you participate in the blue bag recycling program.
Yes.
The question is a yes or no question, and we'll start at this end with Mr. Wade. Would you support continuation of what has been a trial program in the blue bag recycling program?
Yes, I would. And I was fortunate enough to take the city tour around all the facilities and see what they do with the trash and how much is recycled. And when I started the Blue Bag program at my house, I was really amazed at how much trash I saved, because it used to be I couldn't hardly put the lid down. Now it's only half full because all the other stuff is over in the Blue Bag.
Ms. Peterson?
I'm the same way. I just remarked that our trash can is like 1/3 full now, where it used to be 2/3. Now, by weight, that's not, we're not getting rid of 2/3 of it, but it was amazing to me. And we had always recycled newspapers, but boy, this really got us going more. I definitely support continuing.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes, I'd like to see it continue and expanded.
Great. Mr. Zarneski?
Yes, I think we should continue it. I was fortunate enough to be on the committee on the Solid Waste Reduction Committee that basically implemented the Blue Bag program, and I think it's a good steward of our resources, our financial resources, and our natural resources. So I would like to continue.
Ms. Bransford?
Yes, it's a great program, and when I realized I was rinsing my yogurt cup out to put into the, so what has this world come to?
Ms. Blanton?
Excuse me, I'm a new recycler, thanks to Margaret Martin and Becky Caldwell. So I am the ones that are trying to be converted. I'm still working with my husband, but
It's contagious.
yes, I think it's good. I did hear somebody the other day say, you know, I love the blue bags, but I have to take my glass off anyway, so I just take that with it. So expanding it is going to be great.
Okay. Mr. Barnhill?
Yes, I support the blue bag, and I've used it, certainly don't use it as much as I suspect some others do, but it's been a successful program. I see the blue bags out at almost all the trash cans in my neighborhood whenever the trash is being picked up. So it is a program that is being utilized and is being used, and I support that.
Mr. Altman?
Yes, I support it, and if I didn't, my 5-year-old would get on to me because he loves checking the little symbol saying, we can recycle this.
Great. It's been a great time to have these answers to these important questions, and as we said, we did try to allow as much time as possible for the candidates to answer questions. We will now have closing statements, which will be 1 minute in length, and we'll begin with Mr. Altman.
All right, first, thank you, Mindy and Franklin Tomorrow for this forum. It's been great. Closing statement, I guess I was raised by the dad who served in city commission, served as mayor, and he taught us that service to the community was first and foremost. When I graduated from college at Princeton, majored in politics, the unofficial motto was in the nation's service, and that's something they ingrained in us again. Worked in Congress, served up there, needed to find a place to raise a family, wanted to get into teaching education, so moved down to Nashville, Tennessee, go to Vanderbilt, settled down here in Williamson County Schools, Franklin, Tennessee. It's been a great place to raise our family. Looking at running for alderman as a way to continue that service and provide an example for my kids and keep Franklin a special place.
Thank you. Mr. Barnhill?
I'm a lifetime resident of Williamson County, and I've lived in Franklin for the last 42 years. So I've seen the city grow, I've seen it expand, I've seen what it was whenever we were riding up down Main Street. Main Street was just no more than the 2 blocks and a holiday restaurant out on Columbia Highway. So it's been a privilege and a pleasure to have served for the past 19 years out of the last 23. So all for those 19 years, 5 years on the Planning Commission, and the experience that I've got and would offer to the citizens of Franklin, a continued fiscal responsibility, a responsibility to the taxpayers' money, common sense approach to city government decisions, and I would use the experience that I've had and the lifetime of living in Williamson County and Franklin and seeing the growth that we've had over the past 10 or 15, 20 years.
Thank you. Ms. Blanton?
I'm still trying to get used to me calling me Miss Blanton. I love Franklin, Tennessee. My job is about celebrating Williamson County, and this is Streamline. I live in Franklin. I have a hard time not doing just Franklin in our coverage. I have Southern Exposure magazine, but I often thought that later down the road I would run for office, and for reasons that we don't have enough time to talk about, the time is now for me. It's been educational, it's been exciting. Y'all have a hard decision in front of you. I've been embraced by so many. I am thankful for support. I've made new friends, and I have learned you have to ask for people's vote. So I'm asking for your vote. I have a lot to learn. I'm not going to say I'm as educated as the incumbents, but I'm pretty bright, I'm pretty outspoken, and I'm definitely honest. So I just ask for the privilege to serve my city. This is where I get verklempt. Thank you.
Ms. Bransford?
Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming out, and thank you all that are watching at home. Many of my fans are out there at home watching this. I have enjoyed these last few years working here with a group of folks, and not only at this desk and talking and solving problems regarding the city, but the folks that's out there that we are working for. You all paid me to work for you. Did you know that?
Do they know how much you get
I
paid?
get a big check every month to come here and make decisions that are going to continue to make our city great. I want you to give me 4 more years. Give me the opportunity to continue to do this. I love Franklin. I love the quality of life here. I haven't been here too long, not as long as Clyde and some of the others, but my 20-something years here, I could drive down the road, barely 1 or 2 cars on the road. Somebody will actually wave, and I will wave, like, why are they waving at me? Driving and people wave at you for no reason at all, just good country, clean people. This city has grown over the last 20-something years. Good decisions have been made, and we want to continue to make good decisions. And we want to include all people. This city is made up of a wealth of people, poor, rich, green, blue, black, white, okay? We want to continue to do that, and we want to make good decisions to serve our city.
Thank you. Mr. Zarneski.
I want to thank you and Franklin Tomorrow for putting this forum together. It was very beneficial. I've always been passionate about whatever community I've lived in. I'm very passionate about Franklin. I am all for living within our means. I think that the city has done a good job, and I would like to continue that. These elections are very close. People have lost by 6 votes. People have tied. People have won by 25 votes. I ask that you get out and participate. I ask that you get out and vote for me. If you want to know more about me, please visit my website, joey4franklin.com. My email is there. My phone number is there. Again, we can continue to make Franklin a great place to live for people to want to come here to, work and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
First of all, I want to thank Franklin Tomorrow for having us here tonight. And just so you all will know, I want to remind you my name is Scott Harrison, and I am running for Alderman at Large. I really want to keep Franklin a great place for future generations. To do that, we need to focus on our fiscal responsibility. We need to maintain an adequate infrastructure and providing a friendly business atmosphere for both new and existing companies. I moved to Franklin with my wife Kathy here in 1992. We both love this city. I'm an active member of Franklin First United Methodist Church and Franklin Noon Rotary. I have served on numerous committees, including the Franklin Long Range Land Use Plan, and have been a member of the Franklin Planning Commission for the past 8 years. I'm a graduate of Franklin Citizens Police Academy, Class 12, which was in 2001, I believe. And I'm also an alumni from UT Knoxville, graduated in 1980 with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. I have 2 beautiful daughters, Rachel and Emma. Both are in the Williamson County School System. And I am Scott Harrison, and I respectfully ask for your vote for Alderman at Large.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson.
My husband Jim and I have lived in Franklin for 4 decades. We raised our sons here. We worshiped here. I've watched a sleepy agricultural town with its charming preserved core and with its monitored growth turn into the powerhouse that attracted Nissan North America headquarters here. And that's among many companies that have located here or grown from Franklin. My service on Franklin's Planning Commission began before the Cool Springs Galleria was approved, so I've been a witness to the changes. And at that time, I gained a reputation for being the homeowner's voice on the Planning Commission. I've carried that desire for public service on to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for the past 4 years, where I'm the one who asks the hard questions. I'm the one who's the watchdog on how your money is spent, but that's a natural for me because I had just retired after teaching math at Columbia State Community College for 30 years. I have diligently studied city business and issues so I can advocate for the best interest of all areas of city. Please give me the opportunity, vote and support Ann Peterson for Alderman at Large.
Thank you. Mr. Wade.
I am Jay Wade, and I'm running for Alderman at Large. I'm not related to or affiliated with any body or any organization that might likely have business with or an agenda for the city of Franklin. The alderman at large has to represent the entire city and not just the local residents that live around them. The alderman needs to devote time to this job, and you have to be aware and involved at city government. And I would invite voters to go to my website, wadeforfranklin.com. That's Wade, the number 4, Franklin.com. And you can see my views on all the issues, and there's video clips of me in action before the board. Now, I wanted to change the politics of Franklin and to have city government represent all the residents and not just the politically connected. Please vote for me.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Thank you to these people who've offered themselves for service to the city of Franklin. We appreciate that. We'll take a short break and resume with the mayoral candidates in just a few moments. Thank you.